Raise your fists together. I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Red and yellow, brown, black and white. We're all precious in God's sight. Everybody is somebody. Stop the violence. Save the children. Stop bullying. Save the children.
Hold your head high. Stick your chest out. You can make it. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive.
Grandma's hands clapped in church on Sunday morning. Grandma's hands play the tambourine so well. Grandma's hands used to issue out a warning. She said, "Denny's, don't you run so fast. Might fall on a piece of glass. There might be snakes there in that grass." Grandma's hands. Grandma's hands soothe the local away mother. Grandma's hands used to ache sometimes as well. Grandma's hands used to lift her face and tell her, she said, "Baby, Grandma understands that you will really love that man. Put yourself in Jesus' hands." Grandma's hands.
Good morning, Chicago. It's a great day to be alive. Put your hands together. We're at Dr. King's workshop. This is the Rainbow Push Coalition Saturday morning forum right here in Chicago, 50th and Drexel. You can go to that website right now, www.rainbowpush.org. Text the word PUSH to 41444. Let's give a round of applause to the leadership and legacy of Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson. I want you to go to that website right now, and I want you to join the fastest growing social justice army on the planet. I want you to text somebody, tell somebody, comment and chat that the push is on.
Grandma's hands used to hand me a piece of candy. Grandma's hands pick me up each time I fail. Grandma's hands used to give me Susie handy. She said, "Betty, don't you whip that boy. What you going spank him for? He didn't drop that apple core, 'cause he don't have grandma anymore." Grandma's hands. Grandma's hands. Grandma's hands clap to church on Sunday morning. Grandma's hands play the tambourine so well. Grandma's hands used to issue out a warning. She said, "Billy, don't you run so fast. Might fall on a piece of glass. It might be snakes there in that grass." Grandma's hands.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. The push is on, and thank you once again for joining us. We want to welcome all our friends from around the world, whether you're in Brazil, Japan, Nigeria, on the great continent of Africa, and all around the world. We are delighted you're here to join us. We want to offer our prayers for those who are affected in Morocco at this time, where over 3,000 individuals have passed due to the flooding. We also want, due to the earthquake, and we also want to send out our prayers to those in North Africa who were wiped out by the flooding, where over 11,300 individuals have passed. So we definitely want to pray for the individuals who are on the continent. We want to pray for our international brothers and sisters and their families. We want to also wish a happy birthday to our own Jason Robinson. How many ways can we say happy birthday? And the reason we say that is because Jason can speak over 7 unique languages. And we want to, of course, thank all of our supporters. Our program thrives because of those individuals who seek to keep the push going. You are dedicated to us, and we are dedicated to you as we are dedicated to the movement. And by the way, we are social, so please make sure you stay connected with us as we are on all the platforms: Facebook, Instagram, X, also known as what is X now? But X also, and as well as TikTok and LinkedIn. What was it? Twitter, that's right. X, which is now Twitter, which is now X. There we go, appreciate that. So once again, thank you all for joining us around the world. Now we will have a nice, beautiful selection by the JL.
I'm taking my freedom, pulling it off the shelf, putting it on my chain, wearing it around my neck. I'm taking my freedom, putting it in my car, wherever I choose to go, it will take me far. I'm living my life like it's golden, 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 golden, living my life like it's golden, living my life like it's golden. Living my life like it's golden, living my life like it's golden, living my life like it's golden, golden. Taking my own freedom, putting it in my song, singing loud and strong, grooving all day long. I'm taking my freedom, putting it in my stroll. I be hot stepping, y'all, letting it show you fold. I'm living my life like it's golden, living my life like it's golden, living my life like it's golden. Living my life like it's golden, golden. Living my life like it's golden, living my life like it's golden. Living my life like it's golden, living my life like it's golden. Living my life like it's golden, golden. I'm holding on to my freedom, can't take it from me. I was born into it, it comes naturally. I'm strumming my own freedom, praying to God in me, representing His glory, on His proud of me. Hope is proud of me. Oh, living my life like it's golden, 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 living my life like it's golden, 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 living my life like it's golden, 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 living my life like it's golden, golden, hey, it really matters to me, living my life like it's golden, 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 golden,
Yes, thank you to JL and J and friends. What I hope everybody knows that today, this month is International Underground Railroad Month, and today we have Ms. Darcia Rocket, who is going to inform us more about that beautiful fact.
Hello, everybody. So to celebrate our history of freedom seekers, I decided to actually pitch this story for the Chicago Tribune at the beginning of this year to, again, just the knowledge, the history of all that we've endured in America as Black people. And it took me the majority of the year to do, but it came out this week. And hopefully you guys all read it. It's still on the website. But in my course of doing the history, I've looked all throughout Illinois, traveled all throughout Illinois to actually speak with those who are at the sites that are connected to our history, the descendants of the freedom seekers, and what they still have to share, and the knowledge is immense. So I welcome everybody to actually not only read the words that I put together. It's a 5-part series. So I look at the descendants, I look at the sites, I give you the maps, I tell you exactly what time and places to actually visit to get all this knowledge. But the forward-looking aspect of things is looking at how we can preserve this history. Legislation just recently passed this past May that's actually trying to connect all the regional sites where all this history is actually going on. And so hopefully by this time next year, there will be an Underground Railroad task force that will put all this together so it can live on in perpetuity. I know this is a heavy topic, obviously. There's a lot of nuance with this and a lot of history that we can't forget, but I did the piece again so we don't forget. So you can stay in the mainstream, let people know that, Black history is every day. Black history is American history. You can't put us in a corner. So read, enjoy, enlighten. This is all I'm trying to do is, educate. I'm not reinventing the wheel here. Everybody knows, at least we do, the gravitas to all these stories. So read, share, and if you have any, this is an ongoing project as well. So if you have any descendants or you have these stories, I'm here. You can reach me. I'm at Darcel Tribune. That's my Twitter. But I like to keep adding to these stories. We're losing a lot of people who have these stories. So just trying to make sure there's documentation and that these stories live on. So read on, and thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. And as she stated, African American history is everyday history, and everyday history is African American history, because we are America's history. So right now we're going to have another selection by our JLJ and friends, followed by Bishop Grant.
Mother, mother, there's far too many of you crying. Brother, 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 there's far too many of you dying. You know we've got to find a way to bring some loving here today. Father, Father, we don't need to escalate. You see, war is not the answer for all we love and then conquer hate. You know we've got to find a way to bring some loving here today. Oh, picket lines and picket signs, don't punish me with brutality. Don't talk to me so that you can see, hey, what's going on? What's going on? Tell me what's going on. I want to know what's going on. Father, everybody thinks they're wrong. But see, who was there to judge us? Simply 'cause our hair is long. You know we've got to find a way to bring some love here today. See, picket lines and picket shines don't punish me with brutality. Don't talk to me so that they can see, yeah, what's going on. Now what's going on? Tell me what's going on. I want to know what's going on.
Well, put your hands together for JLJ and Friends. Come on, put your hands together for JLJ and Friends. I want you to go to our website right now, www.rainbowpush.org, and join right now. Your membership means so much. He is in the building, the one and only iconic Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson. Let's make some noise for him. You can text the word PUSH to 41444 as we're here at Dr. King's workshop 7 days a week doing work somewhere in the world, for we're a people united to serve humanity. You know, we are fighting on so many fronts for social justice and civil rights. This week we will be with the Reginald Clay family here in Chicago, shot egregiously. We're still waiting for closure for that and waiting for video and evidence to come forward. We want the Clay family to know we're praying for you. Let's celebrate them. Let's give them some love and appreciation and support. This week, this Tuesday, we'll be in Kenosha, Wisconsin, as we'll be fighting for the charges to be dropped against a mother and father who were having dinner at an Applebee's store. Reverend Jackson has requested to meet with the Applebee's team because we have grave concerns about the Kenosha Police Department. This is the same police department that charged Crystal Kaiser, the same police department that provided safety and covering for Kyle Rittenhouse, and the same police officer department that shot Jacob Blake in the back several times. This same police department arrested a couple after they were falsely accused and falsely profiled and pepper sprayed their 1-year-old prematurely born child inside the Applebee's restaurant. These occasions happen all over the country. We were made aware of the similar type of action in a Denny's restaurant, and we want Denny's and Applebee's and IHOP to know the eyes of Rainbow Push are on you now, and we're going to hold you accountable for how you treat black and brown consumers. It has been the work of Jesse, oh, you can clap for that. It's been the work of Reverend Jesse Jackson and the Rainbow Push Coalition to fight and advocate for them. And we'll be in Kenosha this week fighting for the charges to be dropped. The officers have been put on desk duty, but it's got to go further than that. These parents were there at the right time for the right reason and should not be facing charges for anything. Somebody say, drop the charges. Say it again, drop the charges. One more time, drop the charges. And so we're demanding that to happen. The mayor of Kenosha and the police chief and the county prosecutor to drop the charges, but we want Applebee's to be held accountable. We've done it before, and we will do it again. We'll make sure that this family is appropriately compensated We'll make sure that Applebee's rises to the occasion and the standard of being a good citizen to not just those in Kenosha, but Applebee's. You're talking about a franchise that's worth $4.2 billion with 30 franchisees, and none of them are African American and none of them are Hispanic. I believe there's an opportunity for Applebee's to be a better citizen, to bring good to the neighborhood. If you're in agreement with that, 1,600 restaurants around the country and no black franchisee, we're going to do something about that. We're going to make sure we get our fair share. We're not just going to be on the menu. We're going to be at the table and at the door and owning our own as a part of that franchise. The work of Reverend Jesse Jackson, his footprint and fingerprint is all over, and one of the areas where he has been very strong, and that is supporting labor. And labor is in Dr. King's workshop today. I want you to put your hands together for Local 551 UAW is in the building on today. I want Ayanna Dixon to come. Ayanna Dixon is coming. You know, across America, the big three, Stellantis, GM, and Ford, and Reverend Jackson has been on the front line fighting for labor his entire career, and we're fighting for labor all over America. Either cut us in or cut it out. I want you to receive one of our very own, Ayanna Dixon, as she comes.
Thank you for such a warm welcome, and I am so happy to be home at Operation Push as a recipient of that Push to Excellence. We have UAW here, Local 551 in the building. You all, please give a hand. Even if you're online and you're tuning in, I am most honored to be here. However, this occasion is not one that we're proud of, but I believe, Reverend Jackson, we will gain pride in what's happening. You understand in the media that Ford, GM, and Stellantis are under our contract negotiations at this time. And it appears that the demands that are being made by UAW are not being met. And so we stand together, Local 551, with Wentzville, who is on strike right now. They've been walked out of their facility. We're with Stellantis in Ohio, and we do have in Wayne, Michigan, our Ford facility that's already walked out on strike. Now, as Chicago Assembly Plant waits for us to get the information of us being walked out, we're going to the picket line ready. We're ready, Push. And when we go to the picket line, we're going to the picket line with this one word, and that one word is push. We will push on the picket line, following the words of the great Dr. King, that the blessing in America is that we have the right to protest for right. We will push with the words of Shirley Chisholm behind us, that if they won't give us a seat at the table, we will bring a folding chair, and that we don't have time to be whining and complaining on the picket line. We will push on the picket line with the words of Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson, that sweat and tears are both salty, but both render different results. Sweat will get you change, and tears will get you sympathy. And so we're going to be out there making the push on this historical, groundbreaking strike that is happening right here and possibly in Chicago, but it's happening globally. And so, Reverend Jackson, we want you to give a message to the CEO when you talk to him. As you've been the great ambassador and great mediator for change, you let him know that they make $20 to $30 million a year, and that they're setting up generational wealth for their children and their families. And all that we're asking for workers is for a fair contract, for a chance to own homes, for a chance to have a livable wage, for a chance to set up generational wealth for our children. History is not just being made right now in the public with this strike, but we're making history at Chicago Assembly Plant. We have the first black chairman 4 terms leading us in this charge. And as he heads for local negotiations with his wonderful bargaining team, we ask Push that you stand with us and give us that push as well, that Ford Motor Company would give us our fair share. And we will be on the picket line chanting, say it loud, I'm union proud. So we need you all to get on your feet. If you're online, click the love, click the like. We're going to the picket lines, and we ask that you all join us as we continue to stand in solidarity with those plants that are already out. We are not scared because the Bible says that we are to be anxious for nothing. And we've already made our requests known, Reverend. So as the great ambassador, we ask that you go before us and speak for us. And the same way that you've been on the line, the picket line with thousands of union and labor movements, we ask that you join us at Chicago when we walk out. And we will win, we will get change, and we are ignited for a better good. And we're still pushing for excellence. At this time, he hails from Harvey, Illinois. He is the chairman of Chicago Assembly Plant, 4 terms. We're headed for 5 terms, first black man to ever do it. He has a record-breaking number of conversions, of jobs restored, those rightfully fired and those wrongfully fired. He's bringing people back, making sure we're keeping the door open for jobs. His number 1 goal is to negotiate product. But that is no good if we cannot get people in the door because the doors are closed. And so our chairman, Alan Colby Millender, is here to make sure that you're here to support us at Chicago Assembly Plant. You all give him a hand as he's making history of building hope, building futures. I'm just glad to be a part of the movement.
Oh, wow. Wow, thank you, wow. Was that wonderful? Hello, y'all. Hey. All right, so we are here, right? Thank you, Ayanna, for that warm and welcome. And yeah, a lot of people don't recognize that I was the first African-American chairman of assembly plants for Ford Motor Company. The first in the history of any assembly plant. I'm the only standing African-American chairman at this present time for Ford Motor Company. And I take pride in that. So we're here to get the support and talk about the strike of the UAW against Stellantis, Ford, and GM. It is absolutely time that we get what we are owed. You know, I think back on the times when my dad worked at Ford Motor Company for 51 years, and he would come home and he would have unfair wages, and they would send him home and he would get disciplined, and he didn't have the rights behind him. We are kind of still in those days and ages today. Same wages, same benefits, same no cost of living, same things we went through in 1957, we still going through in 2023. Same thing, and it is our time. I stand with President Fain. I stand with Vice President Chuck Browning in this strike, the strategic way he's doing it. Walking out Michigan Assembly Plant into another plant represents Stellantis and GM. I stand with them. But I can tell you this, we were so excited the other night because Chicago was ready, y'all. Chicago was ready to walk out because we knew what we were owed. And we hope that soon coming, well, we hope the strike ends. We hope we get what we got coming, but I don't think it's gonna happen. I think we're gonna have to stand out and get what we owe. Cost of living, fair wages. You know, Ford Motor Company, the union has made a way that I've taken care of my family. When my dad was, like I said, my dad had 51 years, he took care of us. It has made a way for us to take care of our families. As Ayanna said, to buy homes, to do things we never thought we could have. It has made the way. Some people really don't, some people think they don't need union. Some people think that. Why do you think that? That's the same way we're striking now. We want profit sharing. We want cost of living. We want better wages. We want all that. And it's due to us. They've made millions and billions of dollars. Okay. Thank you, guys. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
I want you, Local 551, stand on your feet and give your round of applause to your chairman. I said give a round of applause to your chairman. Reverend Jesse Jackson has fought for farmers, fought for pilots, fought for teachers, fought for steel workers, fought for nurses, and now he's fighting for auto workers. Make some noise, auto workers. Be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding. Know that your labor is not in vain. The next speaking voice you will hear is the Congressman of the 1st Congressional District of Illinois, Congressman Jonathan Luther Jackson.
Thank you, Brother Millender. Stay strong on the case. Thank you, our sister Dixon, that is leading the troops into the UAW. You've got a family, you've got a friend, you've got our support. You've got a congressman that's going to join you on the picket line. And I want to send a message. You cannot be too proud to picket sometimes. Look at where the stakes are today and look at what's going on. There's a lot of antis going on. Think about it. You've heard about those that are anti-expanding voter registration, anti-women's reproductive rights, anti-teaching our children the curriculum of Africans Americans in the history of America. Our history does not begin with slavery. We are Americans that had been enslaved. We have a very unique history. Those that are trying to erase labor history are the same people that have an issue with the 1619 Project. They have an issue with women and reproductive rights. They're the same people that want to shut down the government. It's time for you to join a picket sometime. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot let our children sit at home and miss this teachable moment. They may need to miss a day of school. They need to learn how food comes on their table. They may need to know how mom and dad have benefits and why they get to take a day off on the weekend. They may need to understand why they have some shoes and clothes that are new that go back to school and other classmates don't, because their parents are willing to stand up and picket for what's right. Ladies and gentlemen, for those that aren't up on the latest news on what's happening with the UAW and our friends in the union, we have to get this message out over and over and over again. The big three, Stellantis, Ford, General Motors, are projected to make $32 billion in profits this year. $32 billion with a B in profits in fiscal year 2023. The executives of these three top labor organizations, these automotive manufacturing companies, are making over $20 million a year. God bless them. But we have to talk about the deal. And what was the deal? Our nation was in crisis in 2008. What happened in 2008 is these corporations were going bankrupt. What was known as Chrysler was given to Fiat, an Italian concern, and then repackaged to call Stellantis. The workers made a tremendous sacrifice. They worked side by side, and some people were willing to take half of the wage to do something patriotic, to donate, to invest, to keep our automotive industry alive. And what have they been given? They've been giving no gratitude, no respect. So the workers today are standing up for their dignity, they're standing up for their rights, they're standing up for their fair wages. Can you imagine working side by side with a colleague for the last 15 years, and you're making $16 an hour, and the other person's making $32 an hour, doing the same work every day? Since 2013 to 2023, U.S. corporations, the big three, have recorded $250 billion in profits. $250 billion in profits, $250 billion. So what are the workers asking for? They're asking for what's normal, what's right, what's fair, and what's just. They have sacrificed the longest and the hardest, and before you benefit the executives and the shareholders, you ought to look back and pay back the people that did the work in order for you to make a profit. It's real simple. It's nothing complicated about it, ladies and gentlemen. We're on the front line, and there's a unionization movement across the nation. We have more billionaires and more wealth and more million-dollar homes in our nation than we've ever had. And that's at the top of the spectrum. And people, the workers that are on the front line, that have the hardest jobs, are being told once again, Reverend Brown, by Pharaoh, to make bricks without straw. They want to keep you in the dungeon of the society. Well, we affirm the right of every working person to have dignity, to make a living, and be honest. In conclusion, we've got a challenge that lies before us, ladies and gentlemen. We have a migrant challenge. One of the issues with the migrant challenge, if you will, is to make sure they have work permits. People inherently want to work to get on with their life. But ladies and gentlemen, we also have to understand, if you are a full citizen, having been born here, your parents having served in the service, having gone to war across the seas, and you might have had an infraction with your government, the United States, and you've served your time, I ask you, why are people that are citizens that have returned home having paid their debt to society, why do they still have work restrictions and cannot work in all of the possible jobs available in America? I'm pushing for migrant work restrictions so that they can now be released to work, and I want everyone that served their time to be able to work in any occupation that's available. We have a labor shortage in our country. You may not get upset about it, but I'm some kind of man. Young people are trying to work and have been turned away. In Lordstown, they're making $23.50 working at McDonald's. And down the block from a plant, the UAW workers are making $16 an hour. McDonald's is now in certain markets outpaying unionized workers at a Ford and GM and Stellantis assembly plant. Ladies and gentlemen, the Reverend Jesse Jackson is fired up. We're going to be going out to the plant. We're going to stand in solidarity. It is my privilege, my pleasure to be back here and to introduce to you the wonderful, the magnificent pastor, preacher, Reverend Brown.
Happy feelings in the air, touching people everywhere. Plenty love in everything. Listen to the people sing. Got myself to remind me of love. My mind and my heart, yeah, I believe in above. And these happy feelings, I spread them over the world. From deep in my soul, I wish you happy feelings. Happy feelings. I wish you happy feelings. Happy feelings. Da, watch it shine down on me. I'm gonna spread my wings, yeah, and tell the whole world so they can see these happy feelings. I spread them over the world from deep in my soul.
This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us all rejoice and be glad. And I'm so glad to be here with my Push family, to our founder, Reverend Jesse L. Jackson, Sr., and to our president, Dr. Freddie Haynes, our acting national director, Bishop Tavis Grant, Reverend Wilson, our executive director of Push Excel, and to all of you who have shown up today to hear what thus saith the Lord unto us. The Bible records in Luke chapter 17, verse 11, "And it came to pass, as he went to Jerusalem, that he passed through the midst of Samaria and Galilee. And as he entered a certain village, there met him 10 men that were lepers, which stood afar. And they lifted up their voices and said, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." God's word for God's people. Praise be unto God. If you allow me for a few moments this Saturday morning to expound on the thought, the marginalized and their master. The marginalized and their master. Brothers and sisters, what we see in Luke chapter 17 is that Jesus opens up this book, and the writer writes of Jesus teaching us of our fight, our focus, and our faith. He opens up in verse 1, and as he's sharing with the disciples, he teaches us that our fight is not solely a skin issue, but the fight is really a sin issue, that our fight is against temptation, our fight is against sin, and our fight is against the tempter. One way to lose the fight is to not recognize what the true enemy is. Every now and then, the true enemy is the inner me, and if you're always fighting the outside and you're not right within, you'll find yourself fighting and never winning. You'll find yourself fighting and never getting justice. What I realize is simply this: not only does Jesus give us our fight, but then Jesus implores the disciples to stay focused, not just on the fight, but to stay focused on forgiveness, not just forgiveness of others, but even forgiveness of self. Jesus pushes a little bit further, and as he's teaching, he asks us to increase our faith. Matter of fact, the Bible teaches us that the disciple says, Lord, increase our faith. And God reminds us that not only shall we have an increased faith, but if we're going to fight, if we're going to focus, if we're going to display the faith that we ought to have, then my brothers and sisters, we must become servants of mankind. Y'all, it's easy to stand, it's easy to lead, but y'all, one thing I've learned is that God has challenged us all to get involved on the servant level of every fight. And you realize that in this text we notice this first thing, that Jesus does ministry from the margins. Don't you realize that a marginalized people are a group or a concept that is treated as insignificant, as inferior or peripheral? In other words, in my Brown Standard Version, it is the people that are treated unimportant, the ones that are overworked, underpaid, underserved, and oftentimes overlooked in the finances of this country. And what we realize in the text is simply this, that Jesus in Luke chapter 9 verse 51, he is on the way to dying, but he stops by a town to give somebody some life. And y'all, I don't know about you, but I get excited to realize that Jesus cares enough about the marginalized that he will stop and look at you even in a dying situation. Jesus' journey is not easy, but his journey is ordered. And y'all, what I love, the Bible tells us that the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. I like the way that President Dr. Freddie Haynes says it. He says, if God orders your steps, he also orders your stops, which simply means if he ordered where you're going, he knew the journey that you would have to take, and he gives you the faith to fight on. Is there anybody other than me in this room that can say, I'm so glad that my road has not been easy, but my road has been ordered. I may have not had everything I want, but I have everything I need. I'm so glad that God finds a way to find me when I can't see him through my circumstance. What I realize is that God cares about the marginalized. Really look at the text. Bible teaches us that God cares about the marginalized. Who are the marginalized? Well, Matthew chapter 19, when the disciples saw children as a nuisance, it is Jesus that saw the children as a treasure. In Luke chapter 8, when sexism was at play, it is Jesus who stops to talk to a Samaritan and he communes with the women at the well. It is Jesus that fights classism in Luke chapter 10, and he stops, and the Jews and Samaritans, while they're fighting against their poor history, Jesus issues a word that we must love our neighbor. But maybe you're not much of a Bible reader and you want to know what's happening in this country. My brothers and sisters, I tell you that God cares about the marginalized. Yes, he cares about the marginalized, that Greg Abbott is putting razors under the water at the border and causing those who want a free country, those who are fleeing to the land of the free that was the home of the slave, and found out that even though they are being cut at the border, even though they're being put out of this country, God still cares about the marginalized. God cares about the little black and brown girls that are going missing all over this country. God cares about the marginalized. God cares about our school systems and our communities that are constantly overworked and underserved. I'm talking of those communities that are wildernesses, that where you go into a community and you cannot find banks, but you find ATMs. You go into a community and you find school buildings with poor education. When you go to a community and you have teachers that may not care or are underpaid, and find out that God cares about those that this country overlooks. God cares about those that are on the margin. And can I let you know that God does not just stop to see the sick and shut in, but God comes to see about those who have been shut out. In this text, we realize that Jesus is walking into Samaria and Galilee, and as he's going in, he is met with 10 lepers. Now, this may not bother you, but if you understand what the Bible taught and what those understood in Jerusalem about lepers, leprosy was a sin issue that caused a skin issue. In other words, they thought because of your sin that God had punished you with a skin issue, that your skin had been cursed. And so these people were shut out of the community. They were put on the outskirts. And not only this, y'all, they were shut out to the point that they were shut out of the medical system. They were shut out of gainful employment. They were shut out of their own houses. They were shut. Does that not sound like America today, that there are those that are in gentrified neighborhoods that are shut out because of a skin issue? What I've come to realize, y'all, is that we don't have to go to the Bible to realize what it feels like to be shut out. We have been shut out of medical systems. We have been pimped by an insurance system. we have been shut out, and that's why voting rights is under attack. We've been shut out, and that's why affirmative action is under attack. We have been shut out, but y'all, what I realize is when man shuts you out, God has a way of stepping in. And y'all, I love God's provision, because right here in this United States of America, we realize though they tried to shut you out of government, we have a congressman by the name of Jonathan Jackson that realizes that when you're shut out, you can lift your voice, and when you lift your voice, you cannot be shut out of what God is opening up. What I realize is simply this, y'all, is that God teaches us through this text that when you are marginalized, you have to learn how to lift your voice. It's right here in verse 12. The Bible says, as he entered into a certain village, there met him 10 men that were lepers, and they lifted up their voices and said, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. Y'all, in 1900, there was a man by the name of James Weldon that wrote a Negro national anthem that simply said, lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty, let our rejoicing rise. That is an understatement. That is a task that while you're being oppressed, you still have to lift every voice and sing. While you're being beat down in a racist system, you still have to be able to rejoice. And what I've come to realize is that from the margins, you've got to be able to lift your voice until the master hears you. You've got to be able to lift your voice until some things change. I'm so glad that the UAW is here, as I'm a son of a UAW worker that has worked for Chrysler for 30 years. And what I've come to realize, that if you don't lift your voice, you'll be overworked and underpaid. If you don't lift your voice, nothing can change. But good news is that when you've been shut out, God is willing to step in, and not only does he see you, but he hears you. He hears you to heal you. He heals you to help you. And what I've come to realize, that if you sit by and sit silent, maybe he'll walk right past you. But if you make some noise, then God will hear your cry, and he will submit to your plight and find a way to give you victory in your fight. Y'all, one thing I like to do, I like to go to concerts. I'm 29, but I like Anita Baker. I really like to listen to Anita Baker. I went to see her in concert. And y'all, when I went to see Anita Baker in concert, it was amazing that we were on the front row. And as I'm on the front row, she closes the curtain. She performs and closes the curtain. She shuts the curtains. And as she's backstage, the crowd begins to cry out, encore, encore, encore. I began to scan the room, and as I turned back forward, the curtains began to open, and that which she just did, she was willing to do again, because the crowd made some noise. Come here, let me give it to you this way, that maybe if there's something you need God to do, what he is waiting for you to do is make some noise. If you need him to give you fair wages, make some noise. If you need him to open doors, make some noise. If what he's done before, he's able to do again, because he's the same God yesterday, the same God today, and the same God forevermore. And I've come here to make some noise and say that I'm coming out of the margins, and I'm making some noise because my master has come. I'm really almost done. Here it is. Realize this, you've got to be willing to move from the margins. Sometimes we're willing to make noise. We're willing to call on the master. But y'all, the Bible shows us that God has a way of healing a people. And sometimes God does it instantly. But every now and then God does it through a process. Realize that delayed justice is not an end to your life. But delayed justice is God preparing you for the freedom that he is is going to give you with his presence. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. So where there is God, there is liberation. And maybe we're not winning our fight because we're going to the wrong people. Realize that they had an issue with society because a bad theology will lead to a challenging sociology. And what I've understood is simply this, that maybe the reason that they have not overcome their leprosy is because they've been depending on a system that has been playing them, depending on friends that have walked away from them. But when they saw Jesus, Jesus met them and they met Jesus. Don't you know that at the point that Jesus enters your problem, that is where a miracle happens? At the point that Jesus meets you is the time for you to meet him. And what I realize is this, that the Bible says that when Jesus spoke to them, he said in verse 14, and when he saw him, go show yourselves unto the priest. And it came to pass that as they went, they were cleansed. Don't you miss this text here, that the Bible does not say that God touched them. The Bible does not say that he cast that leprosy off of them. But the Bible proclaims that Jesus spoke to them when he showed up and told them, go show off to the priest what I'm going to do, and you're going to get your healing on the way. Maybe the reason we're not getting some victory is because we refuse to move forward. Maybe the reason we're not getting victory is because we won't go when God says go. Some of us are waiting on God to fix it, and no, God said, I need you to fight it while I'm fixing it. Some of us are waiting on God to make a way, and God says, no, I'm not just going to do it. You're going to have to go through the process, and I'm going to go with you. I'm going to cleanse you on the way. Can I tell you that justice does not come by sitting and just praying for justice? Freedom does not come, but baby, you've got to lift your voice. Maybe you're not a vocal person, but lift your voice when it's time to go to the ballot box. Lift your voice when you see injustices. Lift your voice, and God will do it on the way. Okay, I'm done. Here it is. I realize that maybe the reason that we have issue is because we don't really know who we belong to. What I realized is simply this: there was this little girl, and this little girl, she had an issue with her hands, y'all. She had a couple of extra fingers, and as she was going to school, people made fun of her. They talked about her. They laughed at her. They ridiculed her. They called her dumb. They called her silly. They called her ignorant. Well, y'all, she went to the principal, and the principal said, there's nothing I can do about this. She began to lift her voice. She said, well, get me to the superintendent. Y'all, the superintendent came and said, there's nothing that I can do about your hands. There's nothing I can do about what they're saying. Y'all, this little girl, she runs home, and when she runs home, she opens up the door and she says, Daddy, I need you to come to school with me. Her father comes to the bottom of the steps and says, baby, what's wrong? She says, they're making fun of me. And he said, all right, let's go. And they began to walk to school. As they were walking to school, they had a conversation, and he said, baby, what are they making fun of? And she said, they're making fun of my hands. He said, well, baby, I've got those same scars on my hand, and so if they're making fun of you, they're making fun of me. Well, Daddy, they're calling me dumb. She said, baby, you've got a 3.9 GPA. Maybe the ones calling you dumb are really the ones that are struggling in school. He said, baby, you've got brains from your mother and your father. He said, but they're talking about the way I look. And her father said, no, baby, you're made in the image and likeness of God. You're black, you're beautiful, and you should be bold. She said, well, Daddy, after a conversation with you, I don't think we need to go to the school, because I've talked to you and you've given me every answer that I need. And I don't know about you, but maybe you're just like the little girl that that you've got some things that aren't pleasing unto other people. But the good news is you have a Father that will tell you that you're made in the image and likeness of God. You have a Father that will tell you that your mind is a pearl. You can learn anything in the world. If your mind can conceive it, your heart can believe it. And y'all, after the lady and the daughter talked to her father, she began to run to school and she had some joy. And y'all, her daddy said, baby, why are you running and skipping? Why do you have some joy right now? And she said, Daddy, because you told me that I can be anything that I need to be. You told me that I can win against my bullies. You told me what I needed to believe about myself. And she turns around and begins to run to school. And on the way, she gets a block away and she turns around and runs back to her daddy. Her daddy said, baby, you're going to be late. And the little girl said, no, Daddy, I can't go to school without telling you thank you, because you gave me everything I need. I can't help but to tell you thank you because you told me I'm beautiful. You can't help. Is there anybody in here that can say, I'm going to turn around and tell the Lord thank you because he gave me victory? I'm going to turn around and tell the Lord thank you because he made a way. I'm going to say thank you for activity of my limbs, because it could have been me outdoors with no food and no clothes, all left alone without a friend, just another number with a tragic end. But you didn't see fit to let none of those things be. So on this Saturday, is there anybody here that can say thank you? Thank you. Victory. Thank you. Activity. Thank you. Freedom. Thank you.
Justice Foundation, please, if you have any questions, please call 773-373-3366. Once again, thank you for coming today. And now by the grace of God and the sweet communion of the Holy Spirit, rest, root, and abide, now, henceforth, and forevermore. Let the church say,
one more time for Pastor Chauncey Brown, everybody. Second Baptist of Maywood. No, you can do better than that. Let's thank